Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's episode of eSpeaks, we're discussing one of the absolute hottest trends in technology, which is low-code software development. It's a technology that allows non-technical people to develop software programs. Pretty cool stuff. To discuss that, I'm joined by a major industry expert, Patrick Jean, Chief Technical Officer at OutSystems. PJ, as you were known, thank you for being with us, and a happy Friday to you.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
You have had an interesting career, PJ, in that you used to work for Microsoft Azure. And of course, as we know, Azure is, one of the three big hyperscalers. I think it's great setup for your current incarnation. I mean, what did you do for Azure, and what did you learn there?
Yeah, sure. Actually, even career may have started even before that when I was 12 years old, writing software on the family computer
Really, you
in
started
paper.
you started young, huh?
Yeah, I started young. Too bad I wasn't making money off of it back then, though. But
Shoot.
yeah, it's been a little bit in my blood for a while, I guess I would say. And yeah, definitely, Microsoft was an interesting time. I love working there. Great technology, great company. Was there about the time the current transition of what you think of Microsoft with the incarnation with Satya Nadella and
Right.
basically the reformation.
Hmm.
One of the things really that I pulled out of that experience was just the difficulties companies have in taking technology and deriving value from it. Just this
Hmm.
massive amount of complexity on this using this like great technology. I mean, there at the
Sure.
time I was there, it's just all of the cloud as far as innovation happening. I mean, it was in the Silicon Valley area at that time. And
Hmm.
it was just amazing. But then seeing how hard companies, the road they were going on to make benefit of that,
Hmm.
and it's just and
You
it's
mean, you
from
mean the
complexity.
customers, or you talking about Azure itself?
No, really the customers. I mean, I
Yeah.
think there
Okay.
was a really smart group of people on the Microsoft side with that. Obviously, AWS has been at it for a while, but just getting it in the hands of people that they can make use of it, which we've seen continuously, ongoing. And it didn't start 7, 8 years ago. It's started 30 years ago or more. Software
Mm.
development. It's just
Hmm.
few people have the ability. There's few people. If you think of it, developers. There's a larger kind of group besides just developers have that knowledge to take all that technology and get value out of it, no matter what your endeavor is, right? For years, there were so many software projects that just failed outright, and then, as technology grew and more, we could do more with it, but we still had that issue of failure. And so really that
Hmm.
time at Microsoft, it kind of hit home to me, big time about great technology, great innovation happening, yet we have not realistically improved the ability for companies to take advantage of that. And it's almost becoming more polarized where the haves, the companies that have access to talent that can do it, are getting more and more. And the companies that just can't compete for that talent is actually having a harder and harder time, even though technology itself keeps getting better.
Well, I mean, I think that brings us logically to the idea of the low code market. It's a really hot idea these days. I see all these headlines about low code. It's what everybody's talking about in the year 2022. Uh, so, obviously, it allows non-tech people to tweak and upgrade software programs. So it's exactly what you're talking about. Sort of expands the talent pool. What trends do you see as you look at the low code software market these days? What's big?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, look, that is one of the things that really drove me, or not drove me, pulled me as far as OutSystems and being able to help solve that problem. I think that, and by the way, I'm not a fan of the term low code, but at least
Oh,
there is a at least
oh, okay.
there is a term, at least there is a
Tell me
term
why
for
you
this.
dislike low code.
Yeah,
What
it
doesn't work for you?
it gives this idea that it's a lesser value, or you get, there's something less about it, and obviously there's less as far as technical requirements, and so it obviously it's that. And I'm very happy this part of the industry has that term for sure, because before it was like, what is this thing that's going on? We couldn't even put a
Mhm.
term to it. Until you put a
Right.
term to something, it's hard to kind of conceptualize what it means. But I think it really, it takes so much of the undifferentiated heavy lifting out of the software development process. If you think about
Mhm.
software development, what you really want are users to derive value from using an application. We have all these, there's like 6 billion people in the world that have devices, about that, smart devices. Think of that.
Mhm.
There are 25 million developers. So
Hmm.
all of those 6, 7 billion people that have smart devices, they interact with these devices via an application. So the applications are really the vehicles for experience. And so the fact that we have so few, kind of 25 million, give or take, as far as people that identify as professional developers that derive a career from professional development, but we
Hmm.
have so many people using it. That's the problem, right? That is the
Hmm.
issue right there, is that you just don't have enough people getting that experience from an application standpoint. So companies need access to more people to do it. We need to make the process simpler. We need to actually open it up to people who don't think of themselves as career developers. I
Right.
mean, there's no reason that you, me, anybody else would have to be quote unquote a developer to develop. We should be able to develop and think of ourselves as a developer without being a career, someone who devotes their entire career to doing it. I think that's where you look at low code and what does it mean? Well, it means just getting this accessible to many, many more people who can provide value in that development process without being a career developer.
You talk about that's first of all, that's really interesting and very needed. And given the number of applications that need to be developed, there's no doubt there's an enormous need for low code, whatever we call it. Interesting that you quibble about the name a little bit, and that I think about the 90s and doing web design. And of course, the term then was WYSIWYG. What you see is what you
Yep.
get. Is low code similar to WYSIWYG in terms of the model that's going on, or is there something different there?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And you may remember there was another term that came after that called RAD,
I
rapid
don't remember
application
RAD. No.
development. Okay, so
Yeah.
rapid application development, it was kind of there was a brief phase there, end of 90s, maybe early 2000s, where there were some tools that allow some real quick scaffolding. And so think of
Hmm.
it as this way: as you can build out the scaffolding as far as what, and both of those are really precursors to what's going on right now. So WYSIWYG, absolutely. The concept that you can take an application, visualize that application, conceptualize what that application should do, and then get it very close to what the end user has. RAD was a way to basically build out some scaffolding, but it didn't really embed the change process. One of the key differentiators that we see in low code, and something that OutSystems I think does really well, is also embed the change management aspect into it. So you want high expressiveness, the ability to have a WYSIWYG type of interface where I can draw what I want,
Hmm.
express myself so it gets very close to what the end user has, but then embed change in that process. I think that one of the things we've learned with software development is you really never know exactly what application you want when you have the idea for the application. That comes
Hmm.
over time and that continues to change, right? That's not something that just today the usage or need for a particular type of application is one thing. In a month, it's going to be different because the world changes around you, new technologies come out. One of the things that we've done is really embed that process of change. We call it true change. There's an engine that captures all of the changes at the time of design. So that's a very different process in modern development, where development teams will make a change. It'll go through a CI/CD pipeline. If there are problems with that change down the line, you have to go fix it. And so there's a lot of great tools out there in traditional development for CI/CD, but it's still the inherent problem is that you are fixing change later. And so I really almost think of like DevOps as a solution to a problem that shouldn't exist. We should be able to take our expressiveness for what we want the applications to be, and then just get that in the hands of users very, very fast. There's some, I'm sure you're familiar with DOOR metrics and how you measure as far as elite performers. That's one of the things that we look closely at, of how can we, in a low code way, make every single customer out there an elite DORA performer.
Hmm. Well, I think one of the other things that's driving low code is that customers increasingly want customized apps rather than off the shelf apps. I mean, I think it's big. Why is that true? And then what does that mean to you in a larger sense of things?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of can go back. Let's think of history, like when SaaS came about. I think SaaS came about because of all of the failures of big software projects. And so, custom software is very beneficial to business because what does it do? It provides a differentiator. So, as a business, you can take your business, put it in software, and it's different than potentially every other business out there. When you take SaaS, you implement it. Guess what? You went through a big, long implementation project. Generally, sometimes it's shorter, sometimes longer. You're just like almost anybody else that uses that same SaaS product. Yes, you can customize it. Yes, you can configure it, but inherently there's still a large percentage of that. Companies need custom software development to really realize that differentiator, what makes them unique. And I think that's where, if you look at like where we fit, we fit in between traditional, which is high risk, takes a long time. You got to have significant number of skilled people that is very hard to get these days.
Mhm.
SaaS on the other side, which is easier to implement, lower risk, you can do it faster, but it's not a differentiator. So for us, we try and hit that sweet spot of where companies get the differentiation of custom software, lower risk, much faster, much lower cost as far as implementation. So get the benefits of those two ends and bring them together. And I really do think, even though I say I don't like low code as a term, but low code as far as a solution is absolutely solving that problem for companies.
Hmm. I want to ask you about the future of where low code is going. But I want to make sure I give you a chance to talk about OutSystems itself and what makes OutSystems different. I mean, why should users buy OutSystems? What's the advantage there to your company?
Yeah, I think let's kind of look at it two ways. For companies that want to buy out systems, it gives them that differentiation. And so one of the things and we've been at this for a while, so it's interesting as far as journey that we've been on. It gives companies the ability to do what there's a lot of great no code and low code. So no code is another term you'll hear as far as companies just on that real,
Sure.
end of the scale, whereas there's kind of no real technical requirements at all. And then low code, you have a little more technical requirements, but it
Right.
gives companies the ability to get these applications in very, very fast. For us, from a differentiation standpoint, is you can get this, but we have very little top end as far as ceilings that you hit. Right. For us, you can get these what we call serious apps. So big, huge apps. Customers want, complex apps that does a lot of functionality, not complex as far as the standpoint of difficult to use, but models all of the complex business requirements they have, and that can hit millions of end users. So for us, we look at that, what we call serious productivity. A developer can write an app very, very fast, but it's a very serious app. They're not toy apps. They're not just Excel spreadsheet replacements. They're not just, Google form replacements. They model the needs of the business, and they can go to millions of end users. So that's where we look at as a differentiator for us. And then the last thing is really what we call built for change. And
Hmm.
so once again, with that concept of that true change engine, you can build for change. We have customers that have been out there for 15 plus years having the same app. They did not have to rewrite it. We upgraded the platform for them. They
Hmm.
continue to innovate on top of it. When a lot of, if you look at a lot of traditional development, rapidly after you get an app out, it turns from 100% innovation whenever you're designing and developing the app to 30% innovation, 70% maintenance, and that depends. That goes up and down depending on the tech
Sure.
stack. But you
Right.
rapidly get this headwind as a development team of you have to maintain software, you have to maintain applications, because it's a concept I like to call software disintegration. As soon
Hmm.
as you put software out there, it begins to disintegrate. Bugs appear,
Sure.
components you use have, security defects. You have an API that you're using that gets deprecated from a third party.
Hmm.
All these traditional development teams have to keep putting effort into just maintaining the status quo. With our platform, we do all that for you. I'm sure you remember Log4j not too long ago.
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah. So not a single customer of ours had to deal with that. We dealt
Hmm.
with that entire thing. So you kind of get the benefit of like a SaaS platform where all the back end infrastructure is handled by us. But you can focus on the creativity of what makes an app unique for you and a custom app for you and your business with our platform.
Interesting. All right. So that's OutSystems. What about the future of low code? I think if you go back to your young self, you were coding software on the family couch. I mean, there's probably 8, 9, 10-year-olds all across America and the world now, doing the similar thing. They probably are ahead of where we would have been at that time. That could be part of the future of low code. What do you see as the future of low code, no
Yeah.
code, looking a few years out?
I see that exactly. I mean, basically breaking down the barriers to anybody who wants to contribute to the software development process and do it in a much more collaborative, continuum based way. So today you have development teams that you have to create. If you want to hand that off to another team, that will get involved with it, it's generally a handoff. What I see as far as low code really working, and that's why I think that term will probably morph over time. It will, but basically these platforms and tools like ours that let basically anybody who wants to contribute to the development process can contribute. You may be a professional developer. You may be a cloud engineer. You may be a security engineer. You also may just be a user that has a desire for a month to really inject themselves into the process and say, hey, I need to help with this. But then after that, I can move away. You may be a business analyst. You may be a low code developer that says, look, I really want to develop, but I don't want to go to all the details and drudgery sometimes that's required of development. I really want to focus on the expressiveness. I think low code brings all that together in 2 to 4 years, like you said, even sooner than that. But
Hmm.
bringing everybody together in a way where we can all contribute to that, moving that needle from 25 million professional developers that are the only ones that can really generate software today to hundreds of millions of developers. In the end, anybody who uses an application could develop software. That's the route that we're going. Is anybody who uses the user itself can become a developer, and then everybody in between that.
I think it's a future where basically, as you say, pretty much everyone is a developer, which is maybe needed given the nature of software in our lives. There's that much software that we need to be developing. PJ, I thank you so much. A lot of interesting stuff. It's going to be an interesting sector to follow. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, James. Appreciate it.